Welcome to Bushcraft Basics. In this video, I've come to an upland area near to where I live, which is densely forested, not only with scrub birch, and there's some old rhododendron here as well behind me, which suggests this is old estate land where perhaps the rhododendron was planted for shoots. But also there's quite a lot of spruce conifers here as well, so a real mix of potential resources. Now I'm out looking for something very particular today, and that is the Birch Polypore fungus. And what I want to do is show you how it can be useful to us in bushcraft, particularly as a plaster. Now the reason why I've come to this area is because, as I said, it's upland. There's lots of scrubby woodland, young woodland that's just getting away. So it's perfect habitat for birch trees, because birch trees are pioneers. They're one of the first trees to make their way into a new habitat to eventually become woodland. And because you've got very scrubby growth here and lots of it, you've got dense birch trees. And where you've got them densely packed together, you're going to get some which are dying out, which are struggling as the woodland self-selects and the better ones make their way towards the sunlight and go on to become mature trees. Those that are suffering are going to be dying out, and it's on the dead birch trunks where the Birch Polypore fungus grows. So if you're looking for this, think of where they're going to be birch trees and where they're going to be densely packed together, so you're going to potentially find a lot of dead wood in the forest. I've only been walking around about 5 minutes and already we've got the perfect habitat for the Birch Polypore. When you look through the stands of birch, look for those dead standing trees that have snapped off, halfway up the length there. And you can really see that silhouette as you look across the woodlands there. And of course that is where we're hopefully going to find that Birch Polypore. There's some beauties here on this dead birch stump here. I spotted it from quite a way off. Once you get your eye in, you really start to notice those large disc shapes, those bracket fungi sticking out from the trunk. They're a little bit high up for me to harvest though, so I won't go for these. But if I was desperate in a real situation, I'd just get a long stick and knock them off the tree. This is a nice one that I've cut here, but it's probably a bit too mature to use as a plaster. You can see all the speckled pores there. I'm not sure it would lift off that easily, but a large one like this that hasn't started to rot is perfect as the fire-keeping fungus. So we'll dry this one out and use that to keep an ember in when traveling from camp to camp. Here's a good example of one that's too far gone for us. It's really started to brown off towards the edge, and as I touch it, it's really squishy and soft. So it's too far gone to dry out, and it's certainly not going to make a good plaster. So leave these ones well alone. Behind me on the birch here, we've got some lovely examples of the fungus. There's quite a few on this tree because there's a lot of dead wood up in the crown. But as always when we're foraging, we want to be sustainable. So I use that rule of 5. If there's 5 of something, then I can take 1. Tell you what, you never know what you're going to come across. Take a look at this cracking cave up here. That looks just right for a night out in the woods if you need a bit of shelter from the weather. Fantastic. This looks like a good one. Let's give it a break off and just ease it off with a knife. So it's a nice clean cut. Nice flesh under that one. Now by cutting that off, I haven't killed the fungus. The mycelium, the root system, which is a much larger part of the fungus, is still inside the tree. All I've removed is the fruiting body. And as long as I don't take too many, and I have sustainability in mind, there'll be plenty to go on and release their spores so this fungus carries on throughout the woods. Here's a nice cluster of polypores here on this dead stump. They look in good condition as well. There's some nice white flesh on the bottom of them. They don't look too old or too far gone, so I think we've got a good candidate here for making our field dressing. Got a slightly younger specimen here. We're going to try this one. Nice white flesh underneath. Let's see if this one is going to peel off nice and easy. So one strip that way, one cut I should say that way, another cut parallel, let's do that. Then we're going to cut across, and the same again. So try to avoid cutting towards yourself when you're doing this. Let's see if we can get this to peel off nicely here. Start it off with a knife away. Nice. A little bit short, that one. Be nice to have a slightly larger mushroom, but it will get around the finger. There we go. Looking good. That's sticking on quite nicely actually. There we go, that's starting to come off now. It's coming off thicker than I would like, but it is coming off nicely. I'm just easing it off with my finger here, just to separate the layers, stop it from tearing out. That's come off very cleanly, as you can see. A little bit thicker than I would like, but let's try it out. Okay, so here's our strip. Let's see how it goes around the finger. There we go, like this. It's quite a chunky piece this, much thicker than I would like, but it would certainly do the job, and because it's porous, it's certainly going to absorb a lot of blood as well if there was a cut there. Now the great thing about this, it isn't just something you can stick on there to apply some pressure, it's actually got some really good properties for us. It's antibacterial, it's anti-inflammatory, it's also a wound stauncher, and it's porous, so it's going to soak up a lot of that there. And I wonder, with a larger fungus, whether we could create a larger dressing, cutting out a big area, and then combining that with something like yarrow, getting some fresh yarrow, putting that in the wound, and then topping it with a good sized pad, a good sized field dressing of the Birch Polypore then, and that with some pressure should do some really good work. This really is a wonder fungus, because not only does it make an effective field dressing, it's also got a few other uses. One of its common names is the razor strop fungus, and that's because you can take a strip of the flesh like this, dry it out, attach it to a board, and then you can use that to put a very fine final edge onto your blade, much like barbers used to do with a leather strop, as that final ultra fine edge on a knife. So it's got that use. Of course, when we dry it out as well, it can be used as a firekeeper fungus. So this really is our firekeeper. You can put an ember in here or a little bit of charcoal from your fire if it's all dry, and then it will smoulder away in here. It's got quite a pungent smell, much like the King Alfred's cakes, and then that can be carried to the next campsite and then blown back to life, and you can start a fire from that. It will burn for quite a long time, especially if you clamp it down and find a way to reduce the amount of oxygen getting to it. You could also use it as a bit of a fire starter, so if you had some dry ones ready, you could then get your fire going with an ember, and then put that ember into the dry fungus and blow it to life, and you'd have a much bigger ember that then could be combined with something like dry grass to bring you to flame, and then you're away. But also in some books it is listed as an edible fungus. Now it's not one you're going to add for any flavour, apparently it's very bitter, I've not tried it myself, but it's more of a medicinal edible. So it's something that you would take pieces of it when it's in good condition, make a bit of a tea out of it, and then drink that on a regular occasion to build up your immune system and generally give you a boost of health. You know, the more I find out about the birch tree, the more of a friend it is to the bushcrafter, because of course you've got the birch bark for fire lighting. That birch bark can also be used to make containers. You've got the dry kindling of the birch tree as well. The wood is really nice to carve. It's quite an easy soft wood to carve with a beautiful grain. And then we've got fantastic things like this, the Birch Polypore fungus with all its properties. And there's another one as well, the horsehoof fungus, which is another one that can be used for fire lighting and is associated with birch trees. So really, it's a tree that just keeps on giving. You know what? I've just thought of another one, the birch sap in February, March, which gives us that sweet, sugary drink. It's a fantastic tree. Definitely my favourite now I've really begun to understand it and its value. Well, that's everything for Bushcraft Basics this time. I hope you've been inspired to get outside and try some of these skills for yourself. Do let me know how you get on with making these polypore plasters. And next season, I'm certainly going to be looking out for some of those polypores in perfect condition where I can make a thinner plaster with that real self-adhesive quality. As always, thank you very much for watching and thank you for supporting Woodland Classroom. And I hope I'll see you soon out in the woods. Bye-bye.